Hi, you nines, how are you? Welcome back to week 3 English with Mrs. Gill. So, in this video, I'm going to go through what you need to complete for your week 3 activities to keep on top of your English work. Now, before I get into any of this, I do need to ask that if you have not yet submitted your week 1 and week 2 work for English, which is both reading the novel and completing the matching novel booklet, you need to have that done along with your week 3 work by Friday. I apologise to those of you who have done the right thing and who have submitted it on time. However, there is still at least 10 of you who I have not got anything from, which is a little bit worrying since we're, into week 3 of the term. So what we're going to be doing in week 3, we're going to be looking at the trenches again, not the novel itself, just specific pages, events, and quotes from the novel, and we're going to connect it to other topics and historical documents. Now, again, I've kept your work at 3 hours minimum. English is one of your core subjects, just like maths or science. And even if you're a person who struggles with English or it's not their favourite subject, it is really important for you to get your English work done. If you're struggling with time management, prioritise your English, maths, and science work. And if you're still struggling with English, please email me and let me know that you're going to be a little bit late. I'd rather you email me and let me know than me just not know anything. So, week 3, we're going to explore the historical background of World War One. We're going to explore trench life and also going to have a look at some World War One poetry, looking at the experience of life as a soldier. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 activities to complete this week, not very many at all. And like I've already said and harped on about, it is all due Friday, week 3. So do your best to get that done by Friday afternoon and get it to me. So the first thing you need to do is read this background overview of World War One. This is a very, very simplified background or an overview of World War One. You could write an entire dictionary, not a dictionary, sorry, an entire encyclopedia about World War One, and there is so much information out there. This is a very, very short summary. What you need to do is just highlight the key facts in the paragraph below. Using these facts, I'm going to get you to think a little bit deeper into some of these questions. So, for example, what side of the war does Billy fight for? Is he on the Allied powers or the Central powers? You need to write Allied or Central in that box there. You need to read this quote here on page 27 about Billy visiting some locations when he travels between England and what he calls the front. So there's some key places in here such as Belgium, St. Omer, England, and then you need to use those clues in that quote from Billy. Is he fighting on the western front of the war or the eastern front of the war in World War One? Again, all of those clues and hints are in that paragraph. You don't need to go searching anywhere else. Now we've jumped to the end of the war, which connects to the ending of the war that is mentioned up here. So this has gone to page 104 of the book. Billy is talking about September of 1918 and November 1918. You need to read his quote and then provide some extra details that Billy does not mention. So, for example, this is Billy's summary of the end of the war. Based upon a historical summary of the war, what details has Billy forgotten? And I've got a big hint in there, the Treaty of Versailles. So I know it looks like it says Versailles or something like that. It's a French word, Versailles. The L's and the E and the S are silent. So the Treaty of Versailles is how you actually pronounce that word. Now, here we have a mapping activity again. The reason I've put in another map is because as Australians, it's hard for us to understand where these countries are that Billy mentions in the war, and also from a historical context where World War One actually was. So what I want you to do, you can use Google Maps, you can use your phone, you can use an atlas, whatever you have access to. All you need to do is put a number in each of these boxes which matches the correct country. So, for example, Britain is number 1, you would put a box in wherever you think Britain is. So, using a map, it's pretty easy. You should be able to figure that out. That's not too much of a hard activity. Number 5, we're connecting quotes from the book, which is in the white column here. So, over on this side, these are quotes from the book with the grey stuff. Now, the grey stuff is our factual information. Our factual information is what actually happened in World War One. This is a historian's summary of these things, and this is how the characters in the story describe them. Your job is to match the pairs together. And I've given you some big hints there by looking at um, the underlined and bolded words. So, for example, this one here, it had to come, sighed Uncle Stanley. I could tell it was coming when they killed Franz Ferdinand. Over in here, I see Franz Ferdinand up here. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, was assassinated. Austria believed the assassination was organised by Serbia. That's a historical fact. In the book, Uncle Stanley mentions that they killed or assassinated Franz Ferdinand, so those two quotes there match each other. Continue and finish the rest of that activity. Question number 6, we are looking at what historians now, from a modern day perspective, who they think was to blame for the start of World War One. I want you to highlight the key facts in this paragraph and then think beyond the text here. So this is looking at what you have heard and perhaps something your parents or your grandparents have said. So thinking about our feelings to any negative feelings towards Germany, when you read that, that question will make a lot more sense. So there's no right or wrong answer here. This is your own opinion and your own experiences. Now, the passages below, both this one and this one, are from page 6 to 7 of the Trenches. What I want you to do is read the quotes from the novel and then answer the questions below. So the first one, give 2 details about the war that Uncle Stanley forgot to mention in his history lesson to Billy. So based upon your broader knowledge of history, and Uncle Stanley, as he says, and that, Billy, is how the war started. His version is very simplified. Based upon this stuff here, and also the stuff back up here, there's a lot of details that Uncle Stanley doesn't understand. So what are 2 things that Uncle Stanley forgot? Sorry, 2 details Uncle Stanley forgot to tell Billy when he was talking about it. Then we need to look at the alliances and, the negative feelings between Germans and the British and the royalty and things like that. We're looking at a quick war. So why did both of these countries and their alliances want a quick war? What could be some problems if the war went on too long? So what is your opinion on that there? The next topic that we look at in week 3 is the trenches. So the first couple pages was introducing us to the background, the historical factual background of the war. Now we're looking at the trenches. This is a picture here of the layout of the trenches, and I've got a couple of activities for you to complete there. Looking at the parados, these are the parados here. We have a Billy's description of what the parados were. What do you think they were designed to do? Then Billy down here describes no man's land. We can see no man's land is labelled on here in a graphic representation. Using the diagram above as clues, what else might a soldier see? So Billy tells you what he sees. What else might Billy be missing out on here? The last quote, Billy describes the layout of the trenches. We know he's a communications worker, so he is often working in the communications trench, laying the telegraph cables. So list 3 reasons below why Billy was less likely to be injured because he works in the reserve trench. So 3 reasons based upon this quote here and also the diagram above, why was Billy not more likely to be killed earlier in the war. Down here, we're looking at trench life versus real life. What I have in this column here is actual written accounts by real people who lived through World War One that had either sent a letter home or written a memoir. A memoir is like a book about their life. So in this column here, you need to read the accounts from real people. I have their name and the year when possible. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've done the first one as an example, so there's only 3 boxes you need to fill in here. What your job is to find a matching quote from the novel and type out a couple of sentences from that quote, and also tell me the page number it comes from. So this is the memories of Private Pollard. He was looking at, his first time he encountered a dead body, and he described the smell and, the digging of the trenches. In this part here, Billy describes his first experience of finding a dead body in the war. So those 2 accounts match each other. Down here, you'll be looking at talking or where Billy or someone else describes what the trenches were like, the sandbags, the ankle deep water in the mud. That's an easy one to find because there's lots of that. Down here, Stuart Dalton, he explains about the rats and how they were a real big problem in the trenches. Put in a quote here where Billy describes the rats in the trenches. And also here, talking about what it was like to actually be in the trench down in the support line with the rifles and shells and machine guns going off above your head, thinking I could die at any minute. When was a moment in the story that Billy experienced that? And write a quote there. The last part of this week's work is to look at some historical photos. Sorry, for the trenches part, is to look at some historical photos. Now, this looks like a lot of work on this page, but these are actually the only two boxes that you need to fill in. This is an example from me, so you know exactly what I'm expecting. Now, this is the historical picture. This is like your imagination. This is your source. This is your inspiration for your writing. We're going to go back to our creative writing unit a little bit, and in your description of this picture, you're pretending that this picture is going to be part of a story. So you take the picture's inspiration. For example, this is your picture down here. It's a lone soldier in the trenches. It looks like he's leaning over. He's trying to get his rifle up without being shot off the head. You can see that that looks like possibly a dead body behind him. This guy is trying to, cover himself from the exploding shrapnel. This guy here may be injured or maybe just having a nap because he's so exhausted. You're transforming this picture into a tiny bit of a story. In that story, however, you need to include a metaphor or a simile and a type of imagery, and I've highlighted there where I've used those. Your job, you need to show me where you've put that metaphor and where you've put that type of imagery. So read through my example. It's been inspired by this picture. Then you need to be inspired by this picture and write a tiny bit of a short story that matches what's happening in here. My mistake. That is actually the end of our work. Now I actually remember that I reduced the amount of work that you did so we don't have to look at the poetry area. So you can actually cross that poetry bit off. I do remember now that I moved that to week 4 so there wasn't as much work for you to do. So, quick summary. You've got 2 sections that you need to complete for week 3. Looking at the historical background of World War One, looking at a map, mixing and matching historical facts, quotes from the novel. Again, here looking at quotes from the novel in real life and looking at experiences of the trenches from Billy's point of view and also of the point of view of real people. If you have any questions, please email me for help. I'll help you as much as I can. Hopefully, we'll get a higher success rate of people submitting their work on time this Friday. Keep up the good work, guys. Remember to prioritize your core subjects like English and Maths. You need to be getting this work done. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon.